Hi, this is Chris Potter. I've been playing the bass flute for about 20 years, and I thought I would share some information that I have learned over that period of time about what to look for when you're buying a bass flute. Now, it's absolutely critical that you compare at least two different brands because the designs of the keys and the layout of the keys are quite different from one brand to the other, and you don't know which one is going to fit you the best. So the first challenge is to figure out how to get a hold of some different instruments. Now, I do have a list of recommended brands on my website, which is altoflute.net. You can look and see by price category what brands I think are worth the money. I go to the convention every year and I try as many basses and altos as I can get my hands on, and then I decide which ones I think should go on my list. So the first thing that you want to consider to get to try some different brands of basses is to go to the National Flute Association convention. This year it is in Las Vegas, that's 2012. 2013, it's always in August. It's in New Orleans. And every flute maker virtually in the world comes because it's the largest event of its kind anywhere. So there's a room full of all these flute makers, and there'll be at least 50 different basses that you can try. So this would be the best way to try side by side several different brands to get an idea of which one's actually going to fit your hands the best, which is a very big concern. If you can't go to a national convention, there are some other large-scale flute festivals. There are two in particular that are very big. One of them is in Florida in January, and the other one is in Texas in May. And those two events attract flute makers and retail stores from all over the country because they're so big. So this would be another chance to go and try some basses. Now, you may not be able to get to one of those places, so there are some stores in some places that do have a variety of basses to try, and it depends on the size of the store, how many brands they carry. But you be well served again to go to a store in your area and try them. And I have a list. I'm working on getting an even bigger list, but I have a list of stores that carry more than one brand of bass that you can go try. And I will be listing these at the end on some title pages at the end of the video. So you don't have to scurry and get a pencil right now. I'm just going to read them off so that you can get an idea of what they are, where they are. The first one is Carolyn Nussbaum Music. Their website is fluteforyou.com. They are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The Flute Pro Shop, their website fluteproshop.com in Wilmington, Delaware. Flute Specialists, and it's flutespecialists.com in Clawson, Michigan. Also in Michigan, Flute World, fluteworld.com. Again, two in Michigan. Those people in Michigan are so lucky. Flute Center of New York in Manhattan. Their website is flutesforsale.com. Music Factory Direct at musicfactorydirect.com in Mishawaka, Indiana. Blocky Flutes is in Gibsonia, Pennsylvania. Their website is blockyflute.com. Seattle Flute Works, clearly in Seattle. You have to find them on Facebook, so you do a search on Facebook for that, Seattle Flute Works. And then Sherry's Flute Repair and Sales. Their website is lflutes.com, and that's in Grand Junction, Colorado, and Moab, Utah. So say you can't visit one of those places either, they're just too far away. Most of these stores will mail you a flute on a trial basis. Now, you do have to have a charge put on your credit card for the value of the flute. So this is not just free flute here. So the challenge is that you only have then one flute. They're probably only going to send you one flute. Now, if you're dealing with more than one store, you could have a couple of brands that you could compare side by side, but just make sure you have enough credit on your credit card to be able to do that. So I've given you some ideas about how to find some bass flutes to try, which I know can be difficult. Now, I do have recommended brands on my website. As I think I mentioned that before, altoflute.net. I do have recommended brands broken down by price range. One of the things that you want to make sure of with the bass that you're trying, that it has trill keys. And the reason for that is that on the bass, the trill keys are used for so much more than just trilling from C to D. We use them for alternate fingerings, and we use them to stabilize some notes that tend to crack really easily. So you can go to one of my bass flute basics videos, number 6, and of describes why we need Trill Keys. So you've got your flute, you came in the mail, and you get it out, and the first thing you're going to have to do is put it together. So you really want to pay attention to how the pieces fit together. Does the mouthpiece actually slide in and out of the curve easily? Is it too tight, too loose? Same thing for the body into the curve. You want to make sure that these aren't too tight or too loose. Same thing with the foot joint. I have recently had some bass flutes where it was very difficult to move them. It was so tight. And there are ways to clean that so that it slides back and forth more easily. And if you're having a problem with that with the bass you've got right now, you can go to my Bass Flute Basics number 9, and I describe how to solve that problem. Many basses come with a left-hand crutch. This one doesn't happen to have one. So it's something that's going to stick out right here that your left hand is going to sit on, and it helps you to stabilize the instrument, that's why the crutch is there. The problem is that the crutches don't always feel so comfortable in your hand. Clearly everybody's hands are different sizes, so you might ask that you be sent a couple of different sizes or shapes of crutch to see which one fits best in your hand. Now I have some people who found that they like it better without any crutch at all, so you just don't know what's going to work for you. The first thing you're going to play on your flute is just some easy 1-octave scales like F major, E flat major, D major, just really simple, trying to get used to the instrument, keeping your embouchure nice and relaxed, just trying to get the sense of how are my fingers moving over the flute, how are the keys moving, how do my fingers feel, because there are different stretches that are involved on bass flute that don't exist on C flute, and you really want to be physically comfortable on the instrument that you're playing. After you play those scales, you're sort of warmed up, then you want to pay a special attention to what's going on in the foot joint. Now, we did buy the bass for the bottom octave of the flute, and we got 3 notes down here. I mean, the E flat, the D flat, and the C. This happens to have a B key on it. You want to make sure that you can actually slide your finger from E flat to C, for example. Do little exercises down there to see what your little finger can do for you. I played some basses where your finger actually gets stuck trying to slide from the E flat key down to the C key, so we'd rather not have that as a problem. So we really want to evaluate the low octave of the bass flute. This is, after all, why we bought it. So if the low octave doesn't sound very good, this is probably not the instrument that you want to be buying, because we want to sound good down there. And I've played several basses where they sounded good down to about F, but lower than F, they just didn't have any power at all. Well, why buy it if it's not going to sound good in the very register that we bought it for? So think about that. You want to you can play some slow melody, something that you know by ear, like, I don't know, Away in the Manger or something, so that you can really be thinking about what does it sound like? How am I flowing with this instrument? How is this all working for me? You'd want to try something that was fast with short notes just to see how the instrument responds. Try double tonguing. See if you can double tongue on the instrument. Composers seem to give that to us, even though bass flute is not the greatest for double tonguing, but we still get stuck with it sometimes. You might want to venture into 3rd octave. This isn't the reason we bought the bass flute. Fortunately, most easy and intermediate music does not go above the D, above the staff. The notes up there are very shrill, they're very thin, that's just the way they are. It takes a lot of work to get those notes in tune. There are a bunch of alternate fingerings. Here's where those trill keys come in handy. There are a bunch of alternate fingerings that you can use up there. And I have on another one of my Bass Flute Basics videos, number 6, I talk about alternate fingerings, so you might want to go reference that. Now, one problem that is inescapable is that the bass is heavy, and any bass that you try is going to be heavy. Some basses have a large bore. This one happens to be a large bore bass, and this one also happens to have a low B on it. So it's that much heavier and somewhat more awkward to deal with. So you want to make sure that you're getting what you want. It does have a deeper, richer sound when you get the big bore. Now, on another one of my Bass Flute Basic videos, number 1, I give you some ideas about how you can help to hold up the weight of the bass so that your right arm and shoulder don't get so much fatigue. Now, if you're having neck problems or upper back problems or right shoulder problems, the bass is probably not the instrument for you. You might want to consider the alto instead. There are, of course, vertical basses, but they actually necessitate a very awkward twist of the right hand. So those aren't always the solution that we think. Well, I hope I was able to help you, and following this will be the list of all of the companies and their website addresses and their locations for basses. Thank you very much.